Alright, what we are going to do tonight is see how to fly an RNAV approach, or actually two RNAV approaches, one time using WAS, one time not using WAS, in X-Plane using the built-in equipment. So last time we did this using the built-in GPS in X-Plane, flying the 172. So if you want to know how it is done flying a small aircraft, go back one video on my channel to the demonstration where I did the same thing in the Cessna 172 using the built-in GPS. And tonight I'm going to show you how to fly RNAV approaches with an airliner using the built-in FMS instead. So what we are going to use tonight is the Boeing McDonnell Douglas was bought by Boeing eventually, but this is from a time when McDonnell Douglas still was McDonnell Douglas and had nothing to do with Boeing. So the McDonnell Douglas MD-82 that comes with X-Plane 11, that's what we're going to use tonight for this. And we're going to fly a very short IFR flight from Karlsruhe, Baden-Baden here in southern Germany, using a ZIT, and then puts us here. Then we'll follow this airway until this VOR, and at this VOR we are going to join an RNAV approach into Stuttgart. And we're going to use this as a demonstration of an RNAV approach with Barrow VNAV and see how everything works there. And then we're going to do another RNAV approach into Frankfurt Hahn Airport, which is we're up here, there, that one. And there we are going to use an RNAV approach with satellite-based augmentation. So in the US you would know this kind of approach as a WAS approach, and here in Europe we have basically the same thing but with different satellites, and it's called the EGNOS, and that's what we're going to use for the second approach. Alright, so but before we get into this, I have to pick up a few loose ends from last time. And one thing we were talking about last time, of course, was the charts, real-world charts, real-world approaches, what they look like, and what the differences are, the different RNAV approaches. And I wanted to go briefly into looking at two approaches that essentially do the same thing. So arriving in Seattle on runway 16 right, and you see there's two RNAV approaches for runway 16 right, the RNP Zulu approach and GPS Yankee approach. So first thing to remember whenever you have two approaches that use the same type of equipment and the same runway. So in those cases it's both RNAV 16 right. They put an identifier behind it to distinguish them, to distinguish different procedures using the same equipment to get to the same runway, so you can keep them apart. And in that case the Zulu would always refer to the lowest minima, and the Yankee to the second lowest, and if there's an X-ray, the third lowest, and so on. So basically the one that has the Zulu is going to be the one that gets you closest in really bad weather. Alright, so what's the difference between RNAV GPS and RNAV RNP? So RNAV GPS prescribes the type of equipment you have to use for this kind of approach. I mean, area navigation could be many things, but this one clearly says in order to fly this you have to use a GPS. RNAV RNP, on the other hand, does not define it based on the equipment that you have in the plane, but it defines it based on the navigation performance that the equipment in your plane can do, and it doesn't actually care about the system. So there's different requirements. Basically, what RNP says is that you have to make sure that 95% of the time your position accuracy is such and such, and that the probability for having a failure that causes you to lose this accuracy on the position, this kind of failure occurs with a probability of less than 1 to 10 to the 5th. So if you want to go into the details of what exactly RNP is, I just recommend you to go into the Wikipedia article about required navigation performance. It is quite a good job explaining the basics. So not terribly important for the simulator, not terribly important for doing this in X-plane, but the thing that you have to keep in mind is the RNAV GPS says it has to be GPS. RNP is a way of saying I don't care if it is a GPS or an IRS with DME correction, or I don't know, highly trained monkeys or whatever, as long as you can make sure that you satisfy certain requirements. All right, and the difference is such. So this would be RNAV approach into Seattle. We talked about all those elements on the chart before. I want to draw your attention to this area in the approach plate down here that talks about the approach minima, and it has different minima again depending on the equipment that you have. And for LPV, of course, you get the lowest minima, basically 200 feet above ground level, or 616 feet barometric altitude. So if your plane can do LPV, and all the X-plane planes that ship with or all the planes that are in X-plane 11 that have the default GPS or the default FMS can do LPV. So whenever this is working correctly, this is the line that you can use. LNAV VNAV is basically what you get with flying a plane in with X-plane 11 default FMS or default GPS. When there's no fast block, no final approach segment block for that particular runway. So this is what you find in all approaches that are not WAS, or in Europe that are not ETNAs. And we're going to see what that looks like in the plane soon. And of course, LNAV, that's the kind of thing that you get with the GPS in X-plane 10 that didn't have LTV capability and that stuff. And circling this is what we talked about at length in the last video when we flew into Palm Springs in the 172, where we didn't actually land on the runway that the approach was pointed to, but we broke off the approach at some point and flew a circle to land procedure. So that will be the last time down here. So, and if you compare this to the RNP approach that basically does the exact same thing, goes into the same runway, you see that section down here looks a little bit different, and it talks about RNP 0.15 and RNP 0.30, and as I said, this is a way of saying we don't care what equipment is in your plane. We don't care if you use WAS or whatever, as I said, highly trained monkeys. As long as you can satisfy all the criteria for RNP, and you can guarantee that your accuracy is 0.15 nautical miles, that's what it means. Then your position, you always know your position within 0.15 nautical miles under all those certification criteria. Then this is the minimum you can descend to. If your plane is not that good and you're only certified to do that, the 0.3 nautical miles, then of course your minimum is going to be higher because your position is not as accurate. That doesn't necessarily mean the system is not as accurate. I mean, GPS is surprisingly accurate, but the thing that's at play here is can you prove that the system under all circumstances can guarantee that it won't drop out of that with a probability smaller than 10 to the 5th. Again, read the Wikipedia article if you want to know more about that. Of course, everything here is, as it says here in bold letters, authorization required, which means in the real world, even if you have such a plane, you cannot just walk in there and say, hey, my plane can do this, I'm going to fly this approach now, and realize this requires an operator authorization. So your airline has to be authorized with their type of equipment and their pilots in their pilot training to actually fly this approach. There's a couple more things in RNP. For example, there's RNP-AR, which means that your equipment not only has a certain RNP accuracy certification, but it also can do radius to fixed legs, and this is exactly what you see here. You see those curved segments here. That is basically and what that is. This is the RNAV replacement for what used to be a DME arc in the days of VOR DME navigation, where you would have a DME station somewhere and you would fly an arc of constant radius holding a constant distance to that DME while you fly the circle. And radius to fix is basically the RNAV equivalent of that, and not all planes and not all flight management systems can do that. This is why it talks for certain transitions or something. It says RNP-AR required. And in X-plane, basically all planes that use the default GPS or the default FMS, they all can do this. It is programmed. In X-plane, you can always assume your plane can do all RNP and RNP-AR. In X-plane, we're just assumed to have the authorization, so in X-plane we can just do it. Alright, so yeah, that completes everything, completes all the loose ends that I had from the last time, explaining the difference between RNAV GPS and RNAV RNP. And now we're going to put all that theory to work, and I'm going to go back to our flight plan here. So as I said, we wanted to fly to Stuttgart, and I pulled up the this one, and I pulled up the approach plate for the approach that we're going to fly here. As you see, again, it is an RNAV RNP approach. Starts here at our initial approach fix in Luburg, and basically takes us out here to the extended center line to the initial fix, here there was a defined 3 degrees descent slope that starts at the final approach fix here in 4,000 feet, and then it takes us down to an LNAV VNAV minimum of well, completely independent of the size of our airplane. So no matter whether we are flying 172 or whether we are flying the MD-80, 1590 feet barometric altitude, again, there's an intermediate check altitude comparable to like an outer marker check altitude, and again it says here at the check LNAV only. So when we have LNAV VNAV navigation, we don't care. We don't actually need to check this check altitude if our plane can do LNAV VNAV, which in X-plane 11 we can. Then we just skip that and go right down to our 1590 minimum. Again, that assumed LNAV coupled, so coupled LNAV VNAV assumes we're doing a continuous descent, unlike the last time when we flew to Palm Springs, where we did a dive and drive. If we did a dive and drive here, we would be LNAV only, obviously, and then we would care for this check altitude. So it really is up to you how you do it, and explain whether you couple VNAV and do this, or whether you don't and you do the dive and drive thing. Both things are valid ways to do it. All right, so this is the approach that we want to demonstrate, and to get there, again, we have this very short flight plan, and I'm going to use that as an opportunity to talk about VNAV and X-plane in general. So this is a standard instrument departure that we are going to fly here out of Karlsruhe, Baden-Baden. Can I turn this PD? Ah, there you go, that's better. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take off runway 21. We have to fly here until we hit the 8 DME from this DME here, Karlsruhe, Baden-Baden DME, and as soon as we are beyond that DME, actually that one is the 9 DME, sorry, yeah, and then we can turn left here to Gaxi, which is this point right here. So the zip takes us right to this point here. We follow the airway Yankee 712 until Luburg, and Luburg is already the this one, the initial approach fix for our RNAV approach. So pretty straightforward flight plan, and I'm going to put this in X-plane now, and then we can fly it. So we're going from Karlsruhe, Baden-Baden to Stuttgart. We're going to take off on runway 21 by the Gaxi 4 Papa ZIT, and we're going to take the 712 airway to Luburg, and there we're going to fly the RNAV 25 approach, and we're going to use Luburg as the initial approach fix, obviously, as our initial approach transition. We're going to go up to 13,000 feet, and of course, as we are in Germany, we are actually going to do a flight level here, because the transition altitude is going to be 5,000, and as you can see here, change to a flight level. We can see how altimeter settings are quite important, especially when we do an LNAV VNAV a coupled RNAV approach, and yeah, so this will become important. Alright, so this is all set up. We're fine here. I'm going to flip on the flight director. We're going to yeah, so right now it's wings level, obviously, and as soon as we take off, I'm going to go over to the here, the FMS button, couple the LNAV to the autopilot, and we're going to climb to 4,000 initially, and then we get some kind of ATC clearance and go up to 13,000. Alright, so I'm just going to set some flaps. So please keep in mind, I know nothing about the MD-80. I have absolutely zero experience with the MD-80. So if I do something that is horribly wrong, I guess you just have to look the other way, because I'm not an MD-80 pilot. I have zero experience with this kind of plane. I don't even know what most of the buttons do. Again, this serves as a demonstration of the X-plane default FMS, as it is in many other planes in X-plane. So this is not about how to fly an MD-80 correctly. This is just about how to use copy of the FMS. Alright, let's go. Positive rate, gear up. Alright, as I said, I'm just going to go into nav track mode here and put the plane in level change for the time being, flip on the autopilot. And as you can see, yeah, the autopilot is just to follow the RNAV track here. So yeah, it says nav track here, and other autopilots it might say LNAV or HNAV or whatever. Alright, and of course we're going to accelerate and get in the flaps, obviously. So all flaps up. And at this point we're going to climb to 13,000 and switch on VNAV mode. So I'm going to set the target altitude here and press the VNAV button, and that should hopefully I actually need to okay, so flight will change to a target speed of 290 as soon as we've cleared the 10,000 feet restriction, obviously. And we have currently passed the 9er DME here, and we're now on we are right now on this part here, lining up with this 81-degree course to this fix. Let's see if we actually turned on VNAV. It's kind of hard to see at this autopilot. No, we haven't. I'm not sure how this autopilot has been set up. I guess when I click here, yeah, there you go, SMS VNAV. Okay. Alright, so this should work now. Alright, so we're going to pass 10,000 feet soon and accelerate, obviously. There you go. We'll accelerate to 290 knots. And if we zoom out a little bit also on the navigational display, you will see that we have if you go to plan mode here, and we can step through the legs, and you can see here on the navigational display, you will see that at some point we have oh, here it is, we have this little green donut here that tells us we should start our descent here, and that is of course based on a crossing altitudes here, and the idea is to be at 5,000 feet here. I'm going to change that into a hard restriction because otherwise we tend to come in very high and fast if it always goes above here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one into a hard restriction to make this a little bit easier. So as you can see right now it says at or above, and I'm going to set it to an at restriction, and this will have moved the top of descent a little bit further down the route. So if we step back a little bit, step forward here, up, that was too far already. Hang on. And step all the way through, whatever. You see that the green donut that was previously up here somewhere has moved down to here, and this is because I set a hard restriction right there. You will also notice that go back to map mode. You will also notice that we have accelerated to 300 knots without me doing anything. This is of course because we've reached our cruising altitude, and accelerated to the target speed right here. And of course during climb I forgot to set the altimeter because in the USA that will be perfectly fine. We'll be flying 13,000 feet QNH, but not here. Here we are going to be flying flight level 130, and being a flight level, this of course is based on 2992. There you go. Alright, on the progress page you can see the top of descent coming up. So in 9 miles we're going to start our descent, and I'm going to set 5,000 as our first limit altitude because we have to be at 5,000 at or above here. So, and of course the plane won't start the descent if you don't lower the MCP altitude. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set 5,000, get that ready in the MCP altitude, or whatever it is called on the MD-80, and then that should give us a smooth descent. There you go, 5,000. And as soon as we pass this little donut here, we can descend. So we'll slow down to 290 knots and 250 below 10,000 obviously, and we should be looking at a vertical path of about 2.5 degrees, and we can verify that in data ref editor. So according to progress page, another mile, and then we're going to do the descent. You can see here, yeah, the green donut is coming up. And you can see we're slowing down already. The auto throttle has retarded because 300 was the cruise speed, 290 is the descent speed. So it has to slow down to do that. And at this point we will have to allow the autopilot to do that by going out of hold mode. In a Boeing, at this point, you would of course just turn down the MCP and it would do it automatically. In Airbus, it works a little bit different. In the Airbus, you have to actually push the altitude to get it into managed descent mode. And here in X-Plane 11, it's the same thing. You have to it won't start the descent like a Boeing. You have to give it this altitude intervention like in an Airbus, so it'll actually start the descent. So we are now doing the VNAV descent, and there's a couple of data reps that we can use to actually monitor our progress here. So for example, yeah, no, not that one. FMS, there we go. So VPA, as I said, is the vertical path angle that we're aiming for, and this one, VTK, that is the vertical track error. As you can see right now, we have a vertical track error of 120 feet, so apparently we are about 100 feet too high, so we're descending, trying to close that error. So this vertical track error, that is what would show up if you had a PFD with a snowflake indicator. This is essentially what the snowflake indicator would give you. Note that we have no indication here where you see the glide slope that you will see on approach, on an RNAV approach, and this is not actually a bug or any kind of problem. It is just that VNAV for cruise descent is a different system than the thing that provides the glide slope for the RNAV approach. And it's the same thing on a Boeing. On a Boeing 737, the VNAV VTK would be on the nav display, and when you are on an approach, you would get the deviation from the GP on your PFD right here, and this is exactly the same thing that we're going to see soon here. All right, so I'm going to pass Fluburg at 6,000 and a little bit, 6,500, and then next one 5,000 error above, and then 4,000 is going to be the next altitude. So as you can see, it adjusts the vertical speed so that it hits those pre-calculated altitudes. And as I said, we planned for a VPA of 2.5 degrees, and if we look at the actual flight path that the plane is flying here, the actual VPath value is right now 2.52 degrees, so it is doing exactly what we want it to. So a beam Luburg will be at about 6,500. That seems to work out just fine. Remember, we are turning, of course, we have turn anticipation before Luburg. So if we zoom in on the nav display, as you can see, we are about a beam now, and we have those 6,450 or whatever it predicted. So as you can see, the VNAV comes out quite accurate. So next altitude at this point, we're going to hit the 5,000 at this point, and of course it's not going to descend below 5,000 because that's what we set here in the altitude window. And while we're at it, let's put in a speed restriction for the next point so that we can slow down a little bit. To prepare for landing, obviously. Alright, notice that 5,000 feet is coming up, and I'm not going to reset the altimeter. I'm going to leave it wrong on purpose to see what that does for baro VNAV on the approach. So I'm going to leave it wrong on purpose, and then so the speed restriction kicked in, as you can see here. Next altitude is going to be 4,000. Put that on 4,000, and again altitude intervention, and down to 4,000 we go. So right now we are right here and about to turn into this leg. And as soon as we turn onto our final approach course, you will notice that the indication here will change, and it should give us the vertical deviation for the approach. So again, our minimum altitude here is 4,000, which we'll reach in a second. And this is a perfect opportunity to set some flaps already. Maybe arm the spoilers, get everything ready how we want it to. And this is quite aggressive. I don't know why the autopilot is pointing this low. Yeah, it catches itself. Alright, our target speed, well, that's a little bit low. We don't want to go all the way down to zero flaps, full flap speed here. So I'm going to set it at about 170 now. Alright, so next one is Unser. So the next one is actually the final approach fix. Looks about right. And the next altitude is going to be 1200. I'm going down to 1200 here. $530, there you go. On some Boeings there's a very handy feature where you can set the ring on the altitude selector to auto, and then it won't allow you to turn it any further down than the MDA on the approach. Alright, and now I'm going to pause, and I want to direct your attention to this. So what we have here is now the deviation indicator for the approach, and as you see, it's somewhere down here where we were supposed to just hit the final approach path right here perfectly. And that is exactly what I was talking about, where we have been using barometric altitude, and my barometric altitude is wrong because I didn't set the altimeter correctly. So if I set the altimeter to 1026 as it was, which is the correct indication, when I unpause the sim, you're going to see that I'm actually flying higher than I was thinking I was, and this is the explanation why I got this deviation here. And now, of course, it's trying to rescue that. And if I press the ILS button now, I can actually couple the VNAV onto I can actually couple the auto LNAV VNAV on the autopilot. And of course, as I had this mishap with the altimeter setting on purpose, I am now going to how does one? Ah, there you go. I'm now going to be a little bit more aggressive, put down everything that gives drag, and capture this from above, which of course is a terrible thing to do. You should not do in real life, but as I said, I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. Alright, so what we now have is exactly this situation that I talked about down here. We have coupled LNAV, VNAV. This check altitude doesn't apply to us. We're applying a coupled LNAV, VNAV approach. And if we look out the window, well, that seems to work pretty nice. There's the runway right there. So let's this. Whoop, what did I do there? Okay. Let's slow down, arm the spoilers, extend the flaps, get the gear down, all that stuff. Alright, and our minimum, of course, is going to be 1590 barometric altitude. So I'm going to set the oh, that one doesn't actually work? No, it does. Of course it does. I'm going to set this for 1590, and when we cross this, yeah, that's going to be our minimum descent altitude, obviously. And the light comes on above, and here comes our minimum altitude. You look out, dead center, runway is there, everything looks great. Autopilot goes off, and we're going to land here. So this is coupled LNAV VNAV approach, obviously. Alright, and now we're going to pretend, oh my god, there's one of Austin's deer on the runway, as might happen, and we're going to do a go around here, and we're going to go into the missed approach. So gear up, flaps up one notch, and we're going to put the autopilot back into nav track mode so that it follows the LNAV, and going to go up to 5000. That was not good. That was not good. I should have done that before. Again, I have no idea how an MD-80 works. I'm going to pull that. That should give me, there you go. Perfect. That's just what I wanted. And I'm going to go to 5000 here. And this, this actually works with the scroller wheel. Isn't that nice? Alright, we are climbing like crazy, and when we pass 5000, we'll pass this conditional waypoint, and then we'll continue. As you can see here for the missed approach, minimum of 5000 and this DME defined point, and then we can turn right back to Luburg. Alright, okay, so that is about all I'm doing here, and now I'm going to put us into Frankfurt Hahn, and we're going to do the RNAV approach there, with the important difference that for this one, which I'm going to pull up right here, the difference for this one is we're going to have LPV guidance for that one, and if we look at the FMS for that one, you'll notice a few differences. It'll work slightly differently. So I'm going to reset the FMS. Or this is also a question that comes up: how do I reset the FMS to kind of a default state? And the answer is to simply enter a new origin airport, and that resets all the internal state. And as I said, we wanted to fly the RNAV 2.1 approach, and we're going to come here from FH506, that's what it's called. Set that active. I'm not going to enter any VNAV parameters, we're just going to use the LTV guidance. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the instructor console here and put ourselves out there. So IFR low en route. What's this point called? 065. So I'm going to pull a plane somewhere here, pointing roughly this direction at like 4,000 feet or so. What's the minimum altitude? 5,000 actually. Okay, 5,000 something, and point it to this point roughly. Yeah, that should work. So of course you're flying into discontinuity. This is not going to work, so we do a direct intercept to the point that I just pointed us to. I enter that here, press execute, and now everything should be back to normal. I put the autopilot in and altitude capture for 5,000 feet. Go into nav track mode, exactly, and oh, looks like I positioned the plane. Oh, that made no sense. I think I put the plane in the wrong position. Where am I? So yeah, this is not actually where I want it to be. I'm just going to put myself a little further out there, and then we'll just use the direct 2 on the FMS to get us back where we want to be. That should be the easiest way to do it. Alright, so I do this again. I say direct intercept this one, and now see, that looks much better. That should get us right here at, oh, this one's actually 6,000. Jesus, I hope none of my students ever sees me doing this kind of bad airmanship on X-plane. That's a little bit embarrassing. Alright, 6,000 there. 5,000 at the next one, obviously, and you saw I did not enter any VNAV parameters into the FMS, but I want to direct your attention to this page here, the arrival data page, our data on the FMS, and it tells you everything about the approach we just loaded. It tells us it's a GNSS based approach, so RNAV GPS. And it tells us that we have a required provider in the US. That would most of the cases be WAS, and here in Europe, of course, it is EGNOS, and that is providing the LTV guidance for this approach. It actually tunes a certain channel on the receiver. Again, this is not a radio that you actually have in the cockpit, not a radio you are actually going to see in the cockpit. Next altitude still next altitude is 5,000 and or above, so I'm going to go down to 5,000 now. There you go, and let's slow down to 210. Why is it not? Oh, yeah, well, if you never So that's the speed. Of course, this is never going to work. There you go. That's better. Why is the auto throttle not on? Again, I know nothing about this plane. Drop these. Alright, and as you can see here, I entered no VNAV parameters whatsoever. I did nothing. And you have this glide slope indication here on the PFD. And this is the LPV provided glide slope. And the thing is, okay, I'm going to switch down to ILS mode now. So turn the autopilot into approach mode. And this will capture the glide slope. And the good thing about this glide slope is it is LPV provided, so GPS provided. So whatever I set here on the altimeter doesn't matter because it takes the GPS altitude to do that. So even with the altimeter set to something bizarre, this is not going to affect our approach. It's just like an ILS. It's just going to do the right thing. What was the correct setting? 3920, 3029, right? Okay. So as you can see here, the autopilot has armed nav track and GS track. I don't know if this is the accurate indication for an MD-80. I guess a real MD-80 couldn't even do that because it wouldn't have the capability for an LPV approach like this. But in X-plane with the default FMS, all planes can do that. And now we're flying this again. The glide slope is provided by LPV. We can go down to the lowest minimum of 1895 regardless of aircraft size also. And again, all those intermediate check altitudes don't apply to us. They would only apply if we did an RNAV guidance and then do dive and drive. So dive to the next check altitude, go, and then dive again, next check altitude again. We are under LPV guidance, so we don't care for the check altitudes. We have the autopilot coupled to the approach mode, and that's all it is. I like that livery. The Untitled livery is quite nice. So gears down, drop the next flaps, slow down a bit here. So flaps are all the way down, spoilers are armed, that's all looking good. So 1895, that's the altitude we're looking for. 1895, that's right up here. And cross this, that would be our decision altitude. And minimum, and continue. So that was grossly left of the center line, but I guess we hit the pavement. We hit the right pavement. All right. So that was an example how you can fly an LPV approach using the default FMS. As you saw, it's very easy to set up. You don't need to enter any VNAV parameters because it's driven off of GPS altitude, not of barrel altitude. Again, the difference you're going to see if you just go to the arrival data page. So for comparison, if I was, for example, flying the ILS approach instead, it would look differently. Yeah, of course I cannot fly in there and you have a discontinuity now. But if we go to the arrival data page, as you can see, if we fly an ILS approach, it will give us different information, localizer bearing, ILS frequency, and that stuff. And if we fly a non LNAV RNAV approach like the one that we just did, so let's clear that out and say again we're going to Stuttgart and we load the RNAV approach there that we just flew earlier. Do this one, Luburg, and if we then go to the arrival data page, you'll see it looks also different. There's no thing here that says LPV, there's no required provider that says EGNOS or WAS or something. There's no GP information here, so when the page looks like this, then you know it's going to be a regular RNAV VNAV barrel driven and not actually LPV WAS driven. Alright, that is all I can think of right now about approaches, RNAV approaches using the FMS. And I guess that's all for this demonstration. Thank you.